And thank you, HDI, for inviting me. I am, as was said, in Copenhagen, Europe right now, and this is my native language, Danish, that is. So blame me for any mispronunciations or misunderstandings that might occur during the process. But let me jump into it. Um, as Chris said, I've been working with service management for many years and meeting service desk managers. And when I do that, the topics have always been productivity and end user service levels. There's, however, a new boy in town called security. The question is if security is of any concern to you, members of HDI. And I like to illustrate how a professional service desk can become part of a major data breach. Then I'll start by introducing the Twitter hack. When you see this, please reflect on your own situation. The Twitter hack is well known because celebrities were misused by the criminals. I think, however, that it's more interesting how the hackers got access. And the truth is, they simply phoned the internal service desk. And based on the Twitter case, I'll describe how a Vishing attack is done, what can we learn, and how can we prevent it to happen to others, for example, our own companies. The first we heard about the Twitter hack, the 15th of July, was that celebrities' accounts at Facebook were misused. Hackers asked to get $1,000 in cryptocurrency, and it is said that they made $100,000 and they are now imprisoned. But this means that at least 100 people believed the offer you see here in front of you. And the crime was so obvious and so widespread talked about that there were no ways for Twitter to make a cover up. So what's interesting for us is that 2 weeks later, Twitter announced the results of their internal investigation, and they did that in a couple of support tweets. And I've highlighted the most important facts. One, the hackers phoned to specific people at Twitter. They wanted to get access to internal systems with the possibility to add content to customers' accounts. So it must have been a privileged system. They did so misleading employees and by exploiting human vulnerabilities. This is a nice way of explaining that the supporters were fooled by smart social engineers who made the supporters believe that the hackers were real colleagues. The criminals knew what specific employees had the right to the specific system, and they got the passwords for those individuals from the service desk supporters. So the hackers phoned to one or more supporter. The hackers obtained employee credentials, a password, which gave them access to internal tools. They did this misleading and exploiting the supporters. So phone spear phishing is often called vishing. BBC had a great blog on the attack. BBC described in short how it could have happened. Like, hacker to a Twitter employee. Hi, I'm new to the department and I locked myself out of the Twitter internal portal. Can you do me a huge favor and give me the login again? BBC continues. The fact that Twitter staff were susceptible to these basic attacks is embarrassing for a company built on being at the forefront of digital technology and internet culture. I'll add that if the only consequence for Twitter is embarrassment, then that is an unusual low cost for a data breach. In the article, BBC even continued by giving some good advices. They asked CISA, the US Agency for IT Security, and they gave a number of answers on good security, but probably not for this threat. The good hacker is a good social engineer and doesn't sound suspicious. Antivirus software and HTTPS has absolutely nothing to do with the Vishing threat. Only the last advice, you must be 100% sure, is good. The real question is then how to achieve this. Now, you might say this is an isolated Twitter attack, but according to this expert blog site, let me read up. In just the past months since the Twitter hack unfolded, dozens of companies, including banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, and web hosting firms, have been targeted with the same hacking playbook. So this is actually an old hacker method, but with low public awareness. Actually, just today, I saw that FBI warns against Vishing attack. So it's still growing. A few examples of consequences of getting hackers inside your company can be found from my relatively small home country, Denmark. What you see at the right are losses reported by public companies on the local Nasdaq exchange. They have all lost 3-digit millions of dollars after having hackers inside. And according to Verizon's data breach investigation report, then social engineering has over the last 5 years doubled from 17 to 35%. Social engineering is all about tricks and deception. We all know about email phishing, but other types are growing as well, including phone-based phishing. Now, for a successful phishing attack, the social engineers use emotions. They might invoke empathy, fear, or pride, and all other types of emotions that will distract the victim, that is the supporter, from following their guidelines and instructions. But to make it more lively, let me show you a short video on how it actually can happen. And I really hope you have the voice from the video.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice elicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for usage information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com?
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry. So there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right. Thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're going to have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yes.
I hope you like this one. Very, very easy to see. Now, why is the service desk especially sensitive to such attacks? Primarily for two reasons. They are trained to help, and the customer is always right. So it's hard to say no to a request for a password. The service desk has the most important currency, passwords. If you have forgotten your password and need a new, then it's the service desk who can make you one. And if a hacker can make $1 million by getting a password for a specific important user, then they'll prepare for a long time and can make a good false impersonation of the real user. Now, talking about security, getting back to security, remember that it is a 360-degree protection job. It consists of many different products and processes combining into a security chain. But we all know too that no chain is stronger than the weakest link. If you look at the bottom there, the famous now ethical hacker Kevin Mitnick says it so fine in his book, The Art of Deception. Why should an attacker spend hours to get in when he instead can do it with a phone call? Now, all this about experience and threats for security, and I hope it testifies to you that hackers phoning in and impersonating real users to get what they want is a risk. And the service desks are the most vulnerable as they possess the passwords for all users. So what to do about it? I promised to give you an answer on how to defeat the hackers. And here I have to come in, present shortly our solution to this. FastPass Identity Verification Manager offers you the shield against vishing. Any solution to protect against vishing must build on several principles to be effective. 1. Management, and not supporters themselves, decides how to verify. 2. Some users have access to critical data and other users only have access to light security data. I think we should treat them differently. So we want to have processes of different weight and duration to fit to the sensitivity of different user groups. Thirdly, we must be able to combine different verification tests according to the situation and the person. 4, we must prevent supporters from circumventing security. And the way to do that is to remove their privileges. They should not have privileges to change passwords in Active Directory, the standard Microsoft tools. Take them away so they only can do it through a secure workflow. And make it very hard for the hackers. Include dynamic and contextual data as part of the verification test. And add to that for very important employees, we can include manager approval, so that will add an extra layer. And of course, at the end of it, your compliance officer would definitely want to see a list of all the situations where passwords have been given away from the service desk, that I can get a list, a compliance list, telling me per each situation, why did we decide to give him or her a new password. And these are the principles. Just to put a little more meat on it, let me give you a short demonstration, giving that I can find it here.
This demo shows an example of using FastPass Identity Verification Client (IVC). The process shows the user's identity being verified by the service desk analyst. Here, the user is calling the service desk to get a new password. The analyst looks up the user in IVC and is presented with a highlight noting facts about the calling user. For example, the fact that the user has not logged on for the last 14 days. It also states what workstation the end user has logged on to. The analyst then asks the end user to activate FastPass on the end user's PC at the logon screen. When turned on, the IVC client acknowledges that the end user is actually at the usual PC. For this user, the login time is the usual, the PC is the user's own, and the location is also the usual. Hence, we're already at 50% proofing. The user is asked about the mobile number, and if the user has access to the phone, an SMS PIN code is sent to the end user's device. The different authentication types presented depends on the end user's group membership and at the data available. After receiving the SMS PIN code from the end user, the proofing is at 90%. The next question in this example is about the user's last logon time. The analyst must ask the user and assess if the answer is suspicious or not. Now we're at 100%. The user is successfully identified. FastPass sends a temporary password to the end user and the user can log in. The process is audited and the analyst needs no special rights in Active Directory.
I'll here ask you to note during this process how the supporter got confirmation that the user is on his normal PC or perhaps on his portable PC, even though the user is not logged on or logged in because he has no password. So in principle, his PC is dead. That we can do this is part of the uniqueness of our identity, of our IBM. And there's no way a hacker can emulate this. The headline is a quote from Brian Self, an ethical hacker, who said it better than we managed to. FastPass takes emotions out of verification. And this is the key to prevent vishing and advanced hacking attack on the service desk. So because when the big problem is vishing, then it's the supporter's emotions, then we must solve the problem with a fixed and forced workflow. And when a hacker accepts and realizes that he can't win by manipulating emotions, he then prepares to answer the questions, or the personal questions from the supporter. And that's why we need to include dynamic and contextual tests that makes it impossible for the hackers to succeed, even with long preparations. Add to this that we can demand manager approval and the hackers are lost. So therefore, to prevent emotions to take control, you must prevent your supporters from circumventing the verification workflow. So take away their privileged passwords, which allow the supporters to use their standard Windows tools to reset them. Some of you might have heard about FastPass before, but if not, you might ask, why bother with service desk supporters? Aren't users supposed to reset passwords with self-service? It's definitely an option. That why think about doing a very secure process in the service desk if users do self-service? Now, with 10 years in password self-service business, we have to be realistic and say, even in the best self-service implementations, there will always be some users who for some reasons can't do self-service, and they will call the service desk. The same will the hackers. But with IBM, we benefit, and you can benefit from the FastPass experience and infrastructure, combining it with a self-service solution. So what you see in this model and vision is that we with self-service and manual service mirror the same functionality and verifications. We know how to authenticate and verify users, and we reuse this experience from the two different situations. And at the bottom illustrates the sensitive information we have for each user. Answers to question, mobile number, whatever, the PCs, etc. This is reused for both flows. So this means that users only enroll for one solution, and then we share that secret, if you like, information. So what I'd like to conclude here is that hackers use the phone to get passwords now, as they did for Twitter, and it is growing. There are no good standard solutions or advices right now. So to avoid emotional decisions from the supporters, a forced workflow for verification is needed. We offer this workflow exactly now. So just last slide, social engineering is as old as humans. Even the old Greeks 3,000 years ago knew about social engineering when heart attack was unsuccessful. So, ending up saying thank you for listening, and I'm open if there are any questions to this.
Very good. Round of applause for Finn. Can we do that on a Zoom?
You don't have to.
No.
Just allow me in. I'm very pleased.
I think you frightened everyone with that video.
I hope so. Selling through fear. No, that's not my point. My point is that I think in many services that this process about passwords have been so focused, and that's the discussions we've been through so many times, that how can I get the cost per transaction down? How can I get it lower? How can I get it to nothing? And in that process, old good disciplines securing the process, I think in many organizations have been forgotten. Not bad will, but such a hard pressure for productivity has driven this process to a point where security might have been forgotten. And as I said, or as a customer said to me at a meeting yesterday, security rules. So as I also said, there's a new kid in town, security.
All right, so let's hit Finn up and Chris maybe with some questions. I got a couple myself. I can start out.
I got one too. This is Rob.
Go ahead, Rob.
I don't know how to raise my hand in Zoom.
Everyone's off mute, so just take yourself off mute. This is informal.
Okay. So this is kind of interesting. I've never heard of Vishing, but our service desk was attacked a couple of years ago via the phone. We had a contractor that knew some names in the organization. They called our service desk pretending to be one of these people and was able to use the emotion of the agent to get information about another employee. And they did it 4 or 5 times trying to get more names from different employees. And even when you listen to the recording, I don't know how I would have responded, because this person was very convincing that she was who she says she was. So, I wonder how many of us out here have had this on our service desk.
Yeah.
I heard at an event a couple of months ago where I presented made the same presentation, and here a manager, not top manager, but a team manager in the service desk, as he said, well, Finn, it sounds very good, all of it, but what can we do when this basically the CEO or someone of that position calls into the service and says, I am in a hurry. Give me a password now. Well, I have some processes. Well, I'm more important than you are. Give me my password now, or it will have consequences for you tomorrow. That's another way than using empathy. But hackers might say like this, and if you're a company of 10,000 or more people, not all people in the service desk would be able to recognize the voice of a CEO or CFO or someone like that. And my answer was, it's exactly for these situations that you must protect your staff in the service desk, so that the only thing they can say if they have a secure process, doesn't have to be ours, but in the same way, the only way I can give you a password, Mr. High job, is that I go through these steps. You have to be patient. That's the way I can protect you. I have no other ways. That's what my management has decided. In that case, he cannot, as the example you gave here, Rob, that even how well they talk about it, if they are not able to give a password away, and you can also use that process in other situations where there's important information or other important things that you will give away, but you need to be sure it's only to the right people. In those processes, if you can prevent that they give it away in any other ways, then you know that they have been through a thorough process and it is documented afterwards what happened. I think that is as well as we can do it. But the hackers, if you study how social engineering happens, social engineer train in how to impact emotions. And we will all fall for it.
This is Ken Hillebrand in Louisville, Kentucky. Just had a question. In my mind, I think our service desk does a good job. I hope they do. And then, we do a training about once a year on security. We bring our security team in and they do a training specifically for the service desk. Folks are answering calls. Is there any sort of training that you think is more effective than another? I really like the video. That was a good example rather than just standing up in front of the folks or on a Zoom call telling them about good security practice. That video was really great. So that's a good example. Any other examples that you might share with us that?
I think if you would like to have this, we call it the crying baby video. If you like to show that to your team so that they know what they're up against, please just contact Chris, and he'll help you. I'm sure training and awareness helps, but remember, as I said, and you know that 100%, that you train your staff to give support. You train your staff to have happy users. You train your staff that it's important that users get back to work as fast as possible. That's probably more important in your training than remembering security. So if some of your supporters after 4 months after the training prioritizes service and have forgotten security, I would say don't be surprised. You really can't be surprised. I'll maintain that the only way you can be sure is if you can take emotions out, because social engineering is about exploiting that we talk to humans. They can't do it with computers. And using, for example, using a secure workflow like ours, the hackers are talking to a computer.
Thank
That's so. If you let us know, I think it's great if you have some good advices on how to do it. You know what I advise to service desk management when they say this is important, then actually I have seen even in large service desks that the instructions giving to the supporters actually are not adequate. So what you could do tomorrow on Monday or whatever, whenever, is really to make a written document, give it to the supporters and say, this is the minimum of questions you must check before you give a password. So you at least start, but still, we are humans. We can be impacted. Our emotions matters. And point one and point two, you will probably like to have a compliance reporting that you know what has happened.
Hey Finn, I have a question. So in previous roles, I've hired like companies to do pen testing. Are there similar companies, and do you have any recommendations on doing some kind of vishing exercises? To see how to kind of gauge ourselves where our gaps are.
I think it's a great thing to assess if you have a problem, or if you're in a situation where your service desk really are handling it very well. I mentioned a ethical hacker called Brian Self. Actually, I think he lives in Colorado, and he told me that he has done a number of pen testing, where as part of the complete testing, he will always, as part of it, call to the service desk and see if he can get a password for some specific important users. And he says in general he can. But I think most companies, consulting companies doing pen testing, if you as manager bring them in, and when you're doing this kind of things, the staff, of course, nobody else but you must know about it, can know about it. But ask them, please plan if you can get passwords out of our service desk. That's a standard part of a pen testing exercise, and a very good idea.
Just to piggyback on that, Alex, we do that at my company every year. In addition to the yearly pen testing, we have monthly phishing campaigns from the security department, but then we also yearly do a social marketing media stuff where they're trying to do the piggyback into the front door. We've had guys show up in UPS uniforms with fake boxes trying to get in, as well as calls to the service desk. So that's something we do yearly.
Sounds strong.
Yeah.
And there was just one more chat question too. Wanted to know if this was a standalone solution by itself, or was it part of a bigger software package?
It is a standalone solution. I think it's the best combination is to combine it with self-service. The reason for this is that when you start doing this process, reality will probably be that it will take longer time. Now, our product actually, as I said, automatically collects important data that it uses to rate the caller, but still you need to ask a number of questions. So probably this process will take longer time than it takes today. Now, to avoid that you need to hire more people in the service desk to do this process, then it's a very good idea to offload the service desk by self-service and working hard to get up to 70, 80, 90% self-service percentage, so that you only get 10 to 30% back to the service desk. But I will expect, or I will tell you to expect, that the process for those 10 to 30% probably will take a bit longer time than it does today. So it is a standalone. You can have a standalone, but I'm saying with as part of a business case, then the productivity gains in self-service actually might justify the total costs. But I think that's a thought you need to have if you make a strong testing, and the more important people are, the more testing you'll do. That will cost you more time, and somehow you need to handle that, or you implement at the same time a productivity tool that reduces the load. So can work alone, but for me it gives a lot of meaning to combine them. Okay.
What other questions, guys? Anything else?
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure. And if you have any more interest in discussing with us and using the experience we have, please go to Chris in Los Angeles and reach out to him and listen.
All right, I just want to say thank you as well, guys. Nice meeting everyone. It's great.
Thank you.